side.
Right.
So there's a lot of, depending on the neighborhood, depending on the group, the strategy might be different. And one of the strategies that we have found, what we learned by failure was programming a big cohort of groups from the same small city all together didn't work because they needed a place to experiment with new identities. And once they had a new identity and they could create a new identity in a safe space, they could go back out into their community, and then that created the snowball effect. So now when we do programming, we look to pull kids from a variety of different communities so they can experiment with a new identity and go back into their communities, and then exactly that, start pulling along younger brothers and sisters, cousins, etc.
That's how Sandy Close did her media program in San Francisco. She got only a few kids from each place and made them into one regional group. I hadn't thought of it that way before, though. Because everybody does the other way. They do a lot of community-based.
Yeah, and it depends. I mean, I think yeah.
So, whenever they ask a question like that, my answer is always it depends.
Yeah.
Right. I'm sure
And so I think what is kind of wrong is, in our sector, is that we keep trying to figure out the answer. And it really does depend. And sometimes this sector, and this is actually what I had talked about even, I think, at the last gathering, is that we're not demand-driven. We keep trying to come up with a solution, but it's as opposed to analyzing what's actually going on. Because if you analyze what's going on, then you can respond to it and have something happen, and that's more how a movement builds. So, for us to accept that there isn't a solution, it's closer to what you were saying. This emergence piece. So it feels like you don't have control, and you don't, and you shouldn't. Really what we have is we have things that we can bring to something where the youth and whatever. Actually, my comment before this, though, was going to be on something else that was being said, which is that, because I think what we're talking about is trying to see if we can be helpful in students, taking control and taking leadership and getting, whatever you said, permission or something. And I'm on a large foundation board, and we visited some programs we fund in Fresno, and there were a lot of young people there, and I'm not sure, it might have been one of these programs too. Yeah. So when the kids were talking, what they said is that they really appreciated this project really helping them, and they were taking leadership. And they said, but we can't be effective if what we do is we go home and our parents don't know what's going on, and we're trying to whatever. So one of the things they had to change in the program is, can we have the parents involved? Because you can't go home and then all of a sudden you're sneaking out, they think, for something else and whatever. And what out of the discussion, what came out is that in youth programs, because I did the same thing, is we know that because in raising